Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, CesarRespino. Welcome back to another episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. It is your host, CesarRespino. Today, I have a special guest. His name is Elliot Roe. Hey, Elliot.
Hey, Cesar. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, definitely, man. Definitely. Just to give our listeners and viewers a little bit of your background, so then we can dive into some of the questions for sure. So, Elliot, he's a world-renowned mindset and performance coach who helps those in highly demand industries unlock their full potential, perform on demand, and live a limitless life. His clientele includes professional athletes, Olympians, UFC champions, esports competitors, Hollywood actors, high-stakes poker players, Wall Street traders, entrepreneurs, founders, and executives. Man, that's awesome, dude. I definitely want to tap into that and see how that all unfolded. Before we get started with that, though, tell me more about who are you? How was your upbringing? Give me more of you.
Okay, so I was brought up, I mean, you can probably tell by my accent, I'm not originally from Utah. I brought up in London, or just outside of London.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess working middle class family, just normal school life. After school, I ended up going into investment work, property investments, property sales, and then solar energy investments. And whilst I was doing all of that, I came across hypnotherapy. A hypnotherapist managed to help me overcome a fear of flying in an hour. And it really completely changed my life. It changed my access to the world. And because of that, I took an interest in hypnotherapy and went and got trained. And that then led me to this career, 10 years past that point, where I'm working with all of the people that you just described.
Wow, awesome. Let me take it back. Growing up, I know that there's a lot of challenges that sometimes we kind of take for granted, and we as kids go through a lot of different things, right? Growing up, was there anything specific that you wanted to be, as you grew up, or were there any lessons that you might have learned then that you're applying to now?
Yeah, I guess so. So, I mean, the main challenge I had through childhood, my parents had a particularly messy divorce.
Okay.
I was about 11 years old, and they wouldn't really communicate with one another. So I went sort of from that sort of age. I was doing the, organizing when we were going to see them. I was helping them negotiate their financial package of how everything was going to work and things like that. So that sort of in my early teens, definitely from 11 to probably 14, 15, that was very dominant for me, that I was dealing with those things in the background. But then, outside of that, we're quite fortunate. We're brought up in a nice part of the country, and it wasn't a scary place. But everyone does have these different things in the background that, they work through emotionally, and that was my version of that.
Yeah, and I know for a fact that if you go through a lot of things as a kid, right, that inner child, and you don't deal with those things, that can definitely follow you through your career, through your life, right? And a lot of times it would show up later in the years without even realizing that it had something to do with how you were brought up and all those different things. So did you had to do, obviously, being in that position and kind of quarterbacking everything between your parents, did you had to go through any kind of mental or emotional aspect to help you clear some of those emotions?
I've done a lot of hypnotherapy myself. So for the last 8 years, I see someone every 2 weeks. I just think it's useful to keep on top of this work, especially when I'm working in this industry. So in terms of the work, yeah, I've covered that area an awful lot.
Mm-hmm.
I think in terms of the way it showed is I feel like I grew up too early and was probably a 30-year-old, 12-year-old.
Yeah.
So there was definitely some of that, and I don't know that that was necessarily a bad thing,
Right.
but that was definitely probably the thing that showed from that particular instance
Right.
was the taking a lot of control, you know, living a relatively adult life relatively young.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. For those that don't know what's hypnotherapy, can you give us a little bit of its background or what is that exactly?
Yeah, so it's very close to what you were describing in terms
Mm-hmm.
of working through the past. So you get, it's not like the stage show, it's not like the stuff you'll see on TV. The closest thing to describe it as is like guided meditation.
Mm-hmm.
So you get yourself very relaxed in the same state that you're looking for in meditation. But instead of as thoughts come in, letting them go and refocusing on your breath, you're focusing on a specific topic. So an anxiety, a frustration, an anger, self sabotage, whatever it might be. And then that will start to bring up memories from your past. So it'll start bringing up those childhood memories, like you were describing.
Mm-hmm.
So these things come up, and sometimes they're memories you're aware of, sometimes they're not memories that you're consciously aware of. And then through the hypnotherapy session, we then look at those through a different lens. So let's say someone was bullied as a 7-year-old boy. That felt like life and death when you were 7.
Mm-hmm.
So you were
Mm-hmm.
terrified at 7 years old and you thought you might die. Through our adult perspective, we can see it's two 7-year-olds having a fight. It no longer carries the emotional weight. And by reframing and changing these memories, it removes those triggers that are firing in our adult lives and helps us to adjust the programs. So it's sort of a going back, reassessing, reframing the memories so the subconscious is a different program to work from there onwards.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I definitely love that. I myself done. I haven't really been certified, but I've done some hypnotherapy work.
Hmm.
I am certified on the NLP or neuro linguistic programming aspect of that. But
Yeah.
a lot of times people use both those things hand in
They,
hand to
they,
do.
they work
They're
very
right,
closely together.
right,
Very,
exactly.
very closely together.
Yeah, and so definitely it's a powerful, powerful thing. Tell me, at which point did you came to the States?
So I think 2010, I think,
Yeah.
2011, around that sort of time frame. So I was qualified in maybe 2011, qualified in hypnotherapy. My wife is American.
Okay.
She was offered a job in Las Vegas,
Mm,
and I moved to Las Vegas, and I was looking to work with people in basically from Vegas. So I was working with poker players, I was working with UFC fighters. So for me, that worked great from a
mhm.
business perspective. We stayed in Vegas for I think 3 or 4 years, and then we moved across to we had children and decided Utah was the right place to raise kids. So
Definitely a better place than Vegas, right? I mean,
better than
there's
Vegas,
too much. I
yeah.
mean, it's a good place, but it's kind of crazy, right? So,
Yeah.
so
Twin daughters, it wasn't the place to raise them.
oh,
So
nice.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's awesome. Congrats.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, talking about that, and going back to like the hypnotherapy and kind of the things that you're doing right now, I want to tap into that for sure. But I believe that all of that is kind of like that journey, right? Like you're talking about, you're constantly working on yourself, or you're constantly
Mm.
doing something. um, how has it been for you, or what some of the best tips you can give me when it comes down to really working on yourself and working on that mindset, and really more or less more than anything, really facing those fears, right? Like as you were mentioning, you were afraid of flying, and going through this therapy, which comes down to the aspect of the unconscious mind, and being able to tap into that and really create new neural pathways to help you with that. How critical is that for people to say, you know what, maybe I got to give it a try. I got to start looking at things from a different perspective, from a different lens.
Well, I think the way that I see it, and certainly in high performers, and I guess with anyone else, is we all have an idea of an area where we're blocked.
Mm.
So, I mean, mine was very obvious. I was scared to get on an airplane. You
Yeah,
know, that
yeah.
was a big block.
That
But
was huge, coming from all the way from London to the States. That was going
well,
to be
I
a long.
wouldn't. Yeah, I mean, I would turn down long flights genuinely.
Yeah,
Like I'd fly to Europe, but I wouldn't.
yeah,
I'd turn down trips to America purely because of the flight. So,
yeah.
it was life changing for me. But typically, it's when you see a behavior when you know you should be doing something different, but it feels as if there's an invisible force field holding you back. You're feeling physically sick. You're feeling a pressure in your chest. For some people, that's networking events. For other people, it's sales calls. For other people,
Mm.
it's telling their wife they love them. Like whatever the thing is that brings up that physical response to an emotion to you,
Mm-hmm.
the subconscious is guiding that. And it's something where people believe in a lot of cases that that's just how they are. But I believe that all of those things are learned behaviors. So you've learned to do this to protect yourself for some reason, and it can be unlearned. And if you remove those caps, your potential in life dramatically improves. So, one, I would just say be aware of when these physical sensations come up.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a warning sign, and that's sort of a pointer in the direction of the inner work you should be doing. And then when it comes to the inner work, actually doing the work when things seem okay rather than only doing the work when it's a crisis. So what, like I said, I'm very consistent with the coaching that I have, the hypnotherapist that I go to. I go every 2 weeks, whether life is going well or it's going poorly.
Mm.
I see it like personal training. So I see my personal trainer every week. It's not like I'm expecting to get fit and strong and then I don't need to train anymore. And I see mindset work in the same way, that you continue working on yourself because you're looking to you reach optimal. You're not looking to just get over a situation.
Yeah, yeah. No, I love that. I love that. One thing that I have here in my comments, which I really enjoy, is you're not your issues. You can detach from the things that are holding you back.
Mm.
And I think that's a really great point, because oftentimes we allowed a lot of things, and sometimes even people, to hold us back from what could be a great potential, right? And so, um, if you can elaborate more on that message, and how someone can probably start allowing to detach themselves from those things, and start allowing themselves to really start stepping into that true potential. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think a good example is there'll be people who say, I'm an angry person,
Mm.
or I'm an anxious person, or whatever, whatever label they've created for themselves. And they actually truly believe that. They believe that that's who they are.
Mhm,
Um, Typically, as we go through hypnotherapy sessions, or some of the techniques you will have done in NLP, it becomes clear that these are learned behaviors.
mhm,
So at some point in life, something happened where being particularly angry kept them safe, or hiding themselves away kept them safe. And the subconscious just latches onto that because it wants to find the easiest path to safety. And then it will just keep replaying that program over and over again until you make a decision to make a change. So this is why, I'm saying this is a choice. Most people don't understand that it is a choice for them,
mm,
but it's just a decision to say, okay, I learned this, I can now choose to unlearn it. And it might take some work, and they might be uncomfortable therapy sessions that you go through. But on the other side of it, there's a lot of freedom in life. And, if you're an angry person, that can damage your life very substantially. It can damage relationships. By overcoming that, your life changes very substantially.
yeah, yeah, definitely. I love that. I love that. Now, in terms of the people, the clients that you work with,
Mm.
maybe before getting to that, how do you step into into that industry, or even doing that profession for yourself? How did that
Okay.
come about?
So I was qualified in hypnotherapy,
Hmm.
and I'd had some success with just some local golfers improving their score. And what happened was I was talking about this with one of my friends, and she worked in the poker industry. And she said, if you're helping golfers with stress, could you help poker players with stress? Because it can cost them millions of dollars at a final table if they play hands incorrectly because they're stressed. And I said, I don't know. And I started offering free sessions to poker players.
Hmm.
This was about 10, 11 years ago. Did that for a few months, and they saw their results improve quite dramatically. From there, I started charging, and then I ended up with some very big stories in poker. I had clients win over $100 million. They won all of the major events, the main event of the World Series. So I got a lot of attention in that industry.
Hmm.
And from there, I got crossover into other industries. So those poker players were playing poker with professional athletes. They were playing
Hmm.
it with CEOs, with Wall Street traders, etc. And it would be like, hey, you should talk to my mindset guy. You should talk to my mindset guy. And I started becoming busier and busier with business people rather
Hmm.
than specifically for poker players. And that's really how the business grew. And now probably I'm about 30% poker and about 70% business.
Wow.
That's sort of what it looks like.
Yeah. What's typically, how does your program work? Is it typically a couple of sessions, or it really depends on the person? How does that all works out?
I sell 10 session packages.
Okay.
So typically that's how I'm working. Outside of that, there are some people where I'll work with them weekly on a year package,
Yeah.
and that works slightly different. Usually they're people who are doing something very specific. So I have some high stakes poker players who are playing very big games once a week, and they want to do a session before their game once a week. And that will be sort of what I do on an annual basis. But the majority of clients is a 10-second package over about a 6-month period.
Yeah, and just kind of thinking about that, just imagining this poker players that are dealing with so much money on the table, right? And I'm assuming the things you're working with them is really comes down to confidence, perhaps, or it could be the mindset. Tell me more. What are some of the things that you're working on? Being the fact that you are actually mindset and performance coach, what are some of the things that you cover in your teachings?
So a lot of the time they'll be aware of some level of self-sabotage somewhere
Mm,
where an emotion pops up. So I don't know how many people watching this or
yeah.
listening know much about poker, but being three bet is someone sort of betting aggressively into you, and that can feel intimidating to some players. And for some, it triggers anxiety. For some, it triggers anger and frustration. And the reality is, we want that to be something that they just adjust to. So they
Mm,
just adjust to the new betting frequency. um, by working through all of this childhood stuff, bullying issues, self-worth issues, they're able to then adjust at the table. But it might be issues around that, around focus, procrastination. But it typically there's some level of self-sabotage that's happening at some value level. Everyone seems to have a wealth cap of some kind. And
mhm.
when you get close to that comfort zone, we start to see the wheels falling off. And if we can keep the wheels on through the comfort zone and through that wealth cap, they see dramatic increases in the money they can make.
Yeah. I'm just curious. So, did you have to learn also how to play poker, or you already knew, like, to kind of
I
work through?
actually had to learn.
Yeah, yeah,
So I wasn't a poker player before I started working with poker players. I can play now.
yeah.
And yeah, I went through a period of probably 5 years where I was talking about it 7 or 8 hours a day.
Wow,
I
wow,
was
yeah,
only talking
yeah,
about poker for a
yeah,
few years. And so yeah, I learned the game over that period of time, but I was by no means and
yeah.
am by no means a high level player.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. In terms of just kind of looking at your journey up to this point, I'm always curious to learn from people how they define success and what does success look like to them. So, how does that look to you, and how do you define success?
I mean, from everything I've seen with all of my clients, happiness is really the only true success.
Mm,
So, I work with people with extraordinary amounts of money who sometimes aren't very happy people. And I would say they probably don't feel too successful when they're in that state. So I definitely I look for financial freedom because I believe, yes, that does create some level of happiness, but
mhm,
financial extremes don't seem to provide much more happiness past financial freedom. Relationships with family, relationships with friends, and then helping people out along the way. Something I've also noticed is when people reach the pinnacle of an industry, they sort of enjoy that moment of success, but they get far more happiness out of then mentoring other people to that same position.
mm,
So most of the joy I see people having in life actually comes from helping raise other people up. So I would see success as being in a position where people want to listen to you, and you can then help them achieve their goals and their dreams, because that's where I feel, real contentment comes from.
yeah, yeah. No, I definitely like that, and you see it a lot, from different kinds of people where you might have a lot of wealth, and sometimes if they're not happy within themselves or something's going on in their heads, you've seen all these stories, that people either get into drugs or even worst case scenario commit suicide for XY reason, right? Talking about just happiness and relationships and people and all that stuff. You've obviously been around with a lot of great people. What is your belief when it comes down to? I think Jim Roman is the one that came up with that, and he talked about the average five. So, what is your belief on that?
I believe he's completely correct. From what I see, no one makes it to the top of anything on their own.
Mm,
So I don't have these random lone wolves who've managed to become the best at something. Everyone has a team around them. And I definitely see, as people do, it sounds awful, but as people do upgrade their network, they upgrade their life.
mm,
It's a sad truth that it is a bit lonelier at the top, there are going to be, as you progress through different stages of development, different stages of wealth, different stages of self-care even, there will be less people who are at the same stage as you. However, surrounding yourself by other people who are willing to invest in themselves in the same way amplifies it substantially. So I take that very seriously. The level of network that I try and have, and the people I surround myself with, and the people I sort of allow my children to have interactions with,
Mhm.
like we try and ensure that it's people on this same sort of positive thinking, growth mindset path.
Yeah, I know, and it reminds me of an African proverb that says, "If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together." Right? And I truly believe that a lot of times, I do believe that you have to have not only the right network, as you mentioned, you're yourself are going to hypnotherapy,
Mm,
very often, and again, probably somebody will be asking, well, why would you do that, right? And again, because you're always learning. I believe that we have to be a student of life, and we always have to be looking at how can I become better or 1% better than that who I was yesterday, right? And I think that's part of the lacking of perhaps many people, where they lack that the level of commitment to ourselves, right? More than anything. Uh,
I agree completely, and I think the consistency is a huge role in this as well.
yeah,
So, I mean, mine, I'm over the top with coaching
yeah,
and self care, but I think it's important. So I do 5 days a week with a personal trainer. I have a hypnotherapist every 2 weeks. I have a business coach once a month. I have a sleep coach every 2 weeks, and I have a massage once a week.
yeah,
And I honestly believe that all of the money I spend on that, I get back multiples of that because I'm in better position to serve my clients better.
right.
And I think a lot of people see that sort of self care as, oh, that's a cost. I don't want to spend that money, without realizing if it makes you slightly better in your career, only slightly, then you're that much better than your competition who aren't bothering to do all of these things. You're
Mhm,
going to offer a better service, and the success in anything is in the top like 0.1%.
mhm.
And anything that can help you get there is just worthwhile investing your time and money. And I feel.
Right. Yeah. The other thing too, you mentioned earlier, is going back to the idea of, um, as you're growing and growing and getting to a different level or stage in your life, your network is changing. I
Mm,
believe that a lot of people kind of get hung up on that word, like, I do not want to move away from this crowd, or, I know them for, I don't know, X amount of years, right? Grew up together, whatever the case may be. And sometimes, and I'm a guilty of that. That has happened to me in the past too, where we allowed those persons or relationships to really take over what could really be our true possibilities, right? And so we get hung up on that space.
mm.
What is your advice in terms of being able to allow to step away from that, and do know that as you're going and moving up, it's going to get lonely, right? And Les Brown said a quote, pretty much what you were talking about. It's like when you're reaching for your dreams, it's lonely on the top because it's the bottom that's overcrowded,
Mm.
right? And so I do believe that too, except we tend to be where the crowd is.
Yeah, and it's stepping out of that comfort zone and accepting that that's the normal way. You can't drag people up. You can't make people do things they don't want to do. And I think a lot of people burn energy trying to convince friends and family to live the same life, instead of realizing that they might not be ready for that. That might not be their path. And if it is your path, surrounding yourself by other people on the same path really will accelerate you.
Mm,
When it comes to different friends and leaving people behind, I would say it's not about cutting them out of your life completely, but it's about looking at the percentage of the time that you're spending with people who are helping your growth or on the same path of you, and percentage of time with people who are where you used to be. So I would see it as, different people are there for different stages of our development and our life. And we can go back and we can say hi and we can enjoy their company. We don't, but we don't want to only be around people who are back at that level because we've passed that stage. It's like you don't spend a ton of time with your kindergarten teacher. Like she did her job, and
right.
you'll say hi if you see her
Yeah,
in the supermarket. But there was a time and a place for kindergarten teachers, and I just view that across everyone. Because if you don't follow it this way, you will find you're held back and you don't reach your full potential if the average person isn't doing that well
yeah,
generally.
Yeah.
So if you keep yourself with the average people, probably you're not going to do so well.
Yeah. I love that analogy. I didn't think about that. I think about it from that perspective, but it's true. Definitely, there's a lot of truth to that. So, if people wanted to work with you, how can they reach out to you, or how can they learn more about you?
So I mean, I have an app that you can download for free on
Mhm.
iTunes or Google Play, which is called Primed Mind. So that's got about 40 free hypnotherapy audios on it. And then
Mm.
there's an upgrade with about 300 hypnotherapy audios, different areas, sleep, mindset, sales, etc. Just covering lots of different areas to work on. And then for private coaching, and I've trained lots of coaches as well. So it's not necessarily with me.
Mhm.
But if you're looking for a coach, if you go to elliotroe.com, you can apply for coaching there and we can find the right coach for where you are in your current development.
Okay, awesome. And are you taking in? I mean, I know you have a pretty full agenda. Are you taking in new clients at this moment, or?
I'm Yeah, it would probably sort of client dependent.
Right,
So
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm taking some new clients potentially, but it's at the stage where it's quite hard to fit people in my calendar currently.
Yeah, right, right. No, that's definitely, and that's a good problem to have for sure,
Yeah,
right?
I'm not complaining about that issue. No.
Yeah. Um, if people, for the people that are watching us and are listening to us, if they're going through any challenge, whatever challenge that might be, what is one thing or a couple of things you can say so they can start overcoming those challenges?
Okay, take control of your routine. So there's an awful lot of motivation and confidence that comes with you get up every day and you do the exercise that you said you were going to do. Someone who's getting outside more, someone who's getting exercise is generally happier than someone who isn't. So that's something you can take control of, unless in virtually every situation. So take control of your health. If you know that repeating programs are showing themselves, then find yourself a local therapist. Start talking about these issues, be open about these issues. And also have a look, like we were talking about, the power of network is unbelievably important. And there are lots of very welcoming groups. If you're
Mhm.
looking into the self-development world, it's not necessary, it doesn't always cost money to go and find a group in your area of people who are looking to improve their life. Get out of your comfort zone with your current social circle if things aren't going well. And a couple of evenings a week, go to meetup events, find a hiking group, find a self-development group, change something up. Because if you've been seeing a repeating pattern happen and you're not happy with where you are, if you don't change something substantial, it's just going to continue indefinitely. So they're the sort of the very basic tips that I feel are applicable to almost anyone.
Yeah, yeah, and definitely the beauty of it, I think, more so now, a lot of places are reopening again, a lot of networking events. I mean, so you can definitely find a lot of that, and a lot of times I tell people too, it's like even just listening to podcasts like this, or
Hmm.
that are going to help you, inspire you, really give you different thoughts and ideas. It can definitely do that, and maybe I want to take that from that perspective, and doing NLP and just kind of working on my mind for quite some time now, and you being a mind coach. How critical are the programs that are going into your mind, and how would you describe those programs? Number one. Number two, would you change the type of programs that you're intaking on a day-to-day basis?
So I mean, my thoughts on it are actually the most critical programs are the ones that were created early.
Hmm.
So the programs that were created sort of age 3 to age 10 predominantly, that's usually where I find the root cause of the issues.
Hmm.
That's the dominant program that's usually running. That's like the overall running of things. So that's the one that I would be looking to change most.
Hmm.
When it comes to the programs in normal life, I mean, we're a little bit over the top with it again. We try in the evenings, we only watch positive television. We don't watch the news in the evenings. We don't watch dark. So we keep everything positive, everything educational, everything light at those sorts of times of the day, just to make sure that that's what our subconscious is seeing before we go into sleep. And then obviously the network you surround yourself, the things that you see become normal. So if you're surrounded by people doing negative things, that becomes normal. Negative behavior is a normal thing for you. If you surround yourself with people with positive things, that becomes normal. You find yourself doing positive things. So it's just like having an awareness of normalization will probably determine your actions.
Hmm.
So if everyone you know goes to the gym 4 days a week, you'll end up copying them.
Yeah.
And if everyone does drugs, you'll end up copying them. and
Yeah.
just be sort of very aware of that in your everyday life.
Yeah. No, I definitely love that. You talked about some of the habits, some of the things that you do now, with all of the different coaches that you have. Are there any specific things that you do on a day-to-day basis to keep you in a positive state of mind, or just keeping you uplifted on a day-to-day basis?
I mean, the exercise is 6 days a week. So
Okay.
5 days with the trainer, 1 day on my own. So that's, like I said, I feel that's a control that you can always take. I use a sauna, um, probably probably 5 days a week. I hit the sauna. I
Mm,
find that really useful in terms of clearing my mind and meditate in the sauna.
yeah.
Um, and then outside of that, it's just, I'm sort of in a trance state most of the day with hypnotherapy, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I'm in a meditative state a lot. But
Yeah.
I mean, they're the main things, like the sauna and then the exercise.
Right.
And then I track things like my sleep, and I find that that's something I would really recommend. There's a product called an Oura Ring, and there's another one called a Whoop. And they track your sleep and give you scores and tell you about the different types of sleep you get. And if you can gamify your sleep and you find yourself wanting to get a higher score, it really makes your days feel differently
Mm.
if you've had really good quality sleep. So that's like that's something I feel most people could actually see relatively, like, it's low hanging fruit for improvement in your quality of life if you improve your quality of sleep.
Yeah. And a lot of times, talking about that, there's a lot of things you can do that are very minimal. Like, it doesn't
Mm.
cost you a whole lot of money, going out and exercise, or doing certain things here and there that really don't cost any money, except it costs the effort and commitment of you doing it. And sometimes that's could be the challenge too, right? But again, from a monetary perspective, there's so many different things that we can do to help us every day in our lives, right?
Oh, completely. The coaches obviously cost money, but as you say, going outside and going for a run every day, it will make you feel better after a month. Like
Mm.
it just will. And that's free.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Elliot, I really enjoy having this conversation with you. Definitely, is there anything else that you want to share before I let you go?
No, I mean that's everything. Really appreciate you having me on. It's fun to have a chat. And I
Yeah,
mean, really, the main thing for listeners is if you want to check out my stuff, Primed Mind is free to download, and you can try loads of it for free. Like, give that a try, and it will give you an idea of hypnotherapy and the sort of feeling that comes up when you work through that meditative process.
yeah, that's awesome. So primemind.com, and I'll have
Yep.
that on the comments for you guys, and also elliotroe.com, so you guys can also check him out. So again, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate our conversation, all the knowledge you have given us today.
Thanks, man. Have a good one.
All right, sounds good. And for the rest of you guys, do me a favor, please make sure you check out Elliot. Make sure that you share, like, and comment, because somebody needs to hear this message. And I will see you guys at the next episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. Bye.
Hi, I'm CesarRespino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046. Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you've tuned into this podcast. You can find me at your favorite podcast platform where you can like, subscribe, comment, and share. And to learn more about myself, my services, you can find me at www.CesarRespino.com, or you can also find me at your social media. Thanks for joining me, and I am looking forward to having you at the next episode. And know you truly can overcome anything.